Well, good morning, and I'd like to thank the organizers of the symposium for inviting me here to talk today. The original topic that I was asked to speak on is why is dry eye so difficult to study, and ultimately why have so few products been approved? And I thought for me the best way to approach that question was to talk through some of the lessons that I learned during the development of topical cyclosporin or Restasis for dry eye, and some of the things that I think were key to the ultimate approval of the product. As many of you know, this was not a smooth process, and clearly there was a lot of chances for lessons to be learned here, so I'd like to share those with you. I want to mention here that I'm only going to be, all the information that I'm presenting today is available in the public domain. There's no company confidential information in the presentation today. So I'm going to start the journey at the end here. And this is the letter that all of us who are involved in drug development ultimately working towards. And as you can see, this is the three magic words that we love to see. It's approved. And interestingly, it's kind of buried in the text of a letter. I think the FDA teases you, about that, but generally you find it pretty fast. But there's a few other features of this letter that I'd like to point out to you. But let's look at the date of this, December 24th, 2002, Christmas Eve. And in the lore of Allergan, this is widely now known as the ultimate Christmas present that the FDA presented to us. But it is heartening to know that Dr. Chambers and his team were hard at work during the holiday season really to finalize the approval of this product and to make it available for patients suffering from dry eye. But let's look at a couple other things in this. Some other dates that I think are interesting. First, February 24th, 1999 was the date that this NDA was originally submitted. And you can see that just under 4 years kind of transpired between the original submission of the NDA and its final approval. Ultimately, a large number of amendments and submissions, kind of highlighted here, were involved in the process that led to approval. But the other date here, August 3rd, 1999, was the first action, and the FDA did assign a priority review to this program, and you can see that they clearly met their 6-month review date, but it was with approval letter. In July of that year, it was a very memorable day for all of us that were involved in the development of cyclosporin. It wasn't in a very positive way, but it was a day that I know I won't forget. And this was the ophthalmic advisory panel meeting that took place on July 22nd, where the advisory group voted unanimously, I should have highlighted that, to recommend against approval of this product. And ultimately, Allergan's stock fell about 16% that day, and I made a few enemies both in the inside the company and with a number of our investors. But as we progressed through this product, there was a lot of money, creative problem solving that went into converting this setback into the ultimate approval in 2002 in the celebration around Christmas. And what I'd like to do is share some of the lessons that were learned during that process. Clearly, at the time that we embarked on this in the mid-1990s, this was pioneering work. And in respect, and looking back at that, I think the most important lesson in getting involved in a program like this is that you have to be prepared for surprises and be committed to learn from them. Clearly this, you've heard from the earlier speakers that this is a heterogeneous patient population. There were no large, well-controlled studies at the time we embarked in the development of cyclosporin for dry eye syndrome. As such, we had to take some educated guesses around the inclusion and exclusion criteria, sample sizes, and endpoints. And much of the time and the debate on this program really focused in around these. How do you set these studies up so that you get a more homogeneous population that gives a more consistent response to the medication, and also which endpoints was cyclosporin most likely to impact in this disease. Overall, I think that in doing work in these pioneering areas, that you have to commit to comprehensive and robust, high-quality studies. There really are no shortcuts, and I think those of us who've tried to take shortcuts in these programs learn very quickly that they lead to dead ends. But if you do this, I think you get the type of information that's necessary to make judgments about the next steps in the development program. Okay, we spent a lot of money and dedicated a lot of time in generating a comprehensive database, and I think it's very important to objectively review that data and ultimately to trust the data and let it guide you in your decision making. On the preclinical side, by the time we got involved with cyclosporin, it was already well understood from a pharmacological standpoint, but Dr. Mike Stern and his team were pivotal in really generating first the hypothesis and then the in vivo and in vitro data to support the utility of cyclosporin in dry eye. And it was also, their model work was also critical in allowing us to test our formulation activities that were really an essential part of the development of this product. Our early phase clinical and our phase 2 studies was primarily one single study of 160 patients, and it really was quite confounding when we got the results. We learned, I think on the positive side, that our drug was safe, appeared to be very safe. We had no signals that there was going to be any issues there. But this was a dose-response study, and there was no dose-response curve, so that the highest and lowest doses kind of had, in there were 4 doses, and this had kind of intermingled results. The other thing that was very, very clear from this, however, was that although we missed our primary endpoints, which didn't bother me so much because this was a phase 2 study, we did consistently see that drug outperformed vehicle at almost every time point, against the majority of the parameters. So there was a signal that the drug worked, but certainly not a clear indication of whether to proceed or in how best to design the next phase studies. So we were faced with decision whether really to abandon the program at this time, to move forward with additional phase 2 work, or to move into phase 3. And in retrospect, I think maybe doing a little more phase 2 work might have been the right thing to do, but for a variety of reasons, we did move into phase 3. So, but all this was based on really trying to let the data guide us. Okay, well, we had a great team of people working on this project, and I like to think one of the reasons that we were successful is that we spent a lot of time listening to both the internal and external experts, and doing this in a balanced way. In a program like this, I think it's important to get input from the basic scientists, and many of you in this room helped us with that, with the clinical investigators, thought leaders who were not involved in the program directly, and then I relied heavily on kind of the internal champions, and we'll talk about them a little bit in a minute, and also feedback from patients, both subjects in the study, patient advocacy groups, people that had been exposed to the cyclosporin through the compound pharmacy. And all this, I think, gave us the confidence to continue to move forward even in the face of a number of challenges. You can imagine that during the course of this development that there were a lot of ebbs and flows, mostly on the downside of this for much of the time because of the many setbacks we had. I think as we continually assess the risk and return here in an objective way, we were able to convince ourselves that this was a worthwhile program to continue. There were certainly a lot of emotional tides. The July 22nd meeting was probably the low, but things improved over there since after that point. But then they went down once again after we got the results of some of our additional work. But we continued to forge on, again, basically looking at the data and convinced that this would be a product that would benefit patients. So get the best people involved. I think in any endeavor that we're involved in, this is the key to the success. There were a large group, the team consisted of a large group of people over the nearly decade that this program spanned. But I just wanted to highlight two people that were, I think, critical to success. I think Mike Stern is here somewhere in the audience today, and I like to think of him as the father of the Restasis program, the cyclosporin area. And he, throughout the course of it, in various roles as team leader and as scientific champion, was really, influential in formulating the strategy for this program and also problem solving around how to move forward and overcome some of the obstacles we faced. Dr. Scott Whitcup came in a little bit later in the program, but ultimately put together the clinical rationale and package that led to the final approval of the product. And my job was to make sure that this team had the resources that they needed to accomplish the job. And I think if you really are looking to be successful in an area like this, you do have to dedicate fully to the resources that are required. So finally, and maybe one of the most important lessons, and I've learned this both on this project and many others, is that the key to success is working with the FDA. Dr. Chambers and his team were great partners throughout this process in helping to guide us in the direction that ultimately proved to be acceptable in the approval process. We tried to build a collaborative relationship with Dr. Chambers and his team, and I think we benefited greatly from that. So oftentimes I think people look at the FDA in an adversarial relationship, but I really felt that in this and many other programs, they were our partners and our supporters. So in summary, I hope that this brief presentation of some of the lessons that were learned during the development of Restasis will help to accelerate the availability of what we have the big question here, the next generation of dry eye products. And certainly, I know many people out there from the patient perspective are looking forward to the arrival of some additional options. So thank you very much.